Morning, afternoon, or evening. Today we're going to talk about the food service business. In today's chapter, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes the food service business unique, some key characteristics, some trends, the business lifestyle, understanding the marketplace, but most importantly, the value from the customer's perspective. And then we'll go a little bit into some of our segmentation that we see in the restaurant and the food service industry. All right, so first off, what makes the food service industry unique? All right, there's always a common saying that says the food service industry is very bulletproof, or at least recession proof, because everyone has to eat. That is just it's a natural function for people. They have to give their bodies fuel. So everyone has to eat. We always have to have those options, and whether or not they're fine dining, quick service, different segments are going to help us in different situations. Food service business and the accompanying business landscapes are incredibly diverse. So again, we see different forms of food service, from restaurants to grocery stores and contract food services and things like that. And then we have unique features, including decor, lighting, ambiance, parking, seating, employee uniforms, training, and the management approach. And all of those things really affect how what value we see in those different operations. So some key characteristics: we've got sales. Our sales are very volatile. So we saw during COVID, the sales drop dramatically. Sales are influenced by different events, different times of year, the economy, all those different things. Again, the economy affects that. We've got our seasonality, our day-to-day sales. So your Monday versus your Saturday might be different at a location. Your day-to-day sales, your different day part sales, so your breakfast, lunch, or your dinner, maybe happy hour is a big business. Product perishability, okay, so it's in food service, it's a little different than in retail. So if you're in retail, you can have items on hand, and if they don't sell, you mark them on sale and you take a little hit on them, but they don't really go bad. But in the food service industry, if I order thinking I'm going to serve 100 salads and I only serve 5, well, 95 salads are probably going to go in the trash. So not only have we lost the revenue on those, but we've also lost the cost of those items. Some of our food items are labor intensive. And then there is the ease at which the operation can replicate another's food offerings. Okay, so you can make the best, let's say tacos or pasta or something like that, and someone can come along and they can offer the same exact thing, and there's no real way to trademark it or put your stamp on it where they can't recreate it. So in order for us to be successful in the food industry, we need to make sure that we are following the trends. So as we saw in the history of restaurants and food service, we saw how different things that happen in the world affect our food trends. It's important for us to identify these even if we have an open and established restaurant already. So we need to see if these things are going to be a fad or if they're going to be a trend. So our savvy food service professionals, we've got to take a look at something and say, okay, is this going to just be a trend, or is this going to be something that we're going to move forward with? So an example might be something like DoorDash a couple years ago. Some restaurateurs were like, I don't know, do people really want food service? Do they want to come in and dine? There's some value to that. But we've seen that the guest does want their food to go. They do want, they're not as interested in dining in as we thought they were in the past. We have to make sure we have different serving size options, including small plates. So if you see there's 2 videos that will be posted in Canvas. Take a look at those. They're going to talk about dollar menus, delivery, and different trends that we've seen over the past 20 years. And then we also have the evolution of the children's menu. Children's menus are extremely important, and they weren't realized until probably, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. But a lot of times, children are very large drivers in where adults make their decision on where to dine. So I have two kids, and I will spend my money where my kids are going to actually eat the food. I don't want them to order something they don't like, and I just end up throwing it away and going home and having to make them something, or going through a drive-through later. Okay, so a lot of kids are, big chicken tender connoisseurs. They know where to get the right chicken tenders, and if I go somewhere, especially when my children were younger, if I went somewhere and they were taken care of, where they had a children's menu that was exciting, it had some activities in it, they were very accommodating to children, they took care of them, we would continue to go back there because that meant I could enjoy my meal. And and the kids always ask for it. They're like, well, hey, we want to go to this restaurant because we like the chicken tenders or the baby rolls or whatever they get there. And they're asking their parents, and they're helping to make decisions in the family. All right, so a little quickly on the business life cycle. When we start a restaurant or a new business or something, we've got four different parts of that business life cycle: the introduction, the growth, the maturity. And at the maturity is where we make the decision as to whether or not we are going to evolve or we're going to decline. So in the introduction, this is when we're entering the industry and looking for opportunities. We're making the determination of an establishment's price value position. Okay, so there's a lot of research and taking a look at the market that happens before we determine what sort of restaurant, what kind of offerings we're going to put in. We need to make a strong investment in advertising to penetrate the market. There's an intense focus on resource management. So at the beginning, you're going to see a lot of restaurants or places that are just opening, utilizing you're going to see more labor than you normally would. You're going to see more giveaways, more value to create a loyalty to that brand and make sure that our guests have the absolute best experience. And a lot of times in restaurants, especially, inexperience often leads to losses or even business failures. So a lot of people want to open a restaurant because they think it's sexy, right? They think they've seen that manager of a restaurant or the chef or whatnot come out, glass of wine, sit down with guests in the restaurant, socialize with them, but they don't see all the work that went into getting to that point where they can do that. People think, oh, I make the best, I don't know, I make the best cheesesteaks or I grill the best burgers. So obviously I could open a restaurant and be successful, but there's so much more to that than just the cooking or the taking care of the guests. So once we go through the introduction, there's the growth portion of the business life cycle. This is where operations are streamlined. We're figuring out what our schedules are. We're figuring out what we're ordering. We're starting to get a well-oiled machine. The standardization does become critical. We want to make sure that we are putting out the same product every single day. There's an emphasis on localized markets. So if you've opened some sort of multi-location operation, you're going to see that maybe in the Heights you are providing something a little different than maybe you would in like Sugar Land or Clear Lake or the Woodlands or a suburb like that. The menu refinements emphasizing on high profit items. So we're taking a look at what our guests are ordering, if it's profitable, what our most popular items are, and how can we kind of capitalize on those. We're going to see problems that will continue from the introductory stage that will become even more difficult as if we replicate those units. Okay, so if we have a problem in maybe food preparation or some sort of procedures, we have to fix that before we open more units, because otherwise we have that same problem in 5-6 different areas. And then we're going to see that our competitors are going to attempt to copy a popular menu item that we have in order to leverage their success. So if we're offering half price margaritas on Tuesday, you're going to see your competitors probably going to do the same sort of thing, just because they've seen it be successful with us and they want to take some of that market share. Then we get to the maturity stage of our business life cycle. This is where sales stabilize and the brand becomes fully leveraged. Okay, so we're seeing a maximization of how large your dining room is, your labor. It's a really well-oiled machine. You're not getting a lot of surprises. It's just, it's kind of, you're walking into some places well established, and the food's consistent. The staff is always polite, consistent. You're gonna continue to gain market share steadily, but more slowly. So you're not seeing that big increase in sales. You're just kind of leveling out. We're going to branch out, maybe harnessing experience and sometimes launching new brands. Okay, so maybe a conglomerate like Pepsi, they bought Taco Bell, they bought KFC. They can start to diversify their accounts. Often operators are going to focus more intently on profit than on standards. Competitors, again, are going to try and gain and steal our market share again. Then we get to this point where we either grow, right, or we decline. Okay, so our concepts are going to either have to reinvent themselves or die. About 20 years ago, there was this restaurant company called Steak and Ale. They had steaks. They had salad buffets, which used to be really, really popular. But then they started to decline, and they weren't as popular anymore. People weren't really visiting them, and they just opted to keep the same format, and they ended up going out of business. Okay, so in an instance like that, you got to take a look at, okay, if people don't want the salad bar anymore, what kind of things can we offer? If they can't afford the steak anymore, do we need to introduce some menu items that are going to be at a lower price point? Okay, we've got to look at these things and say, how can we keep it fresh? How can we keep it on trend and make sure that we are still getting guests in the building that are purchasing our item? Our management can often drift into complacency, and it's uncertain how to adapt to a changing marketplace. Okay, so especially if you have someone who's very inexperienced, they can reach that point of maturity. They might not necessarily recognize the decline, and they do not react quick enough. Okay, an example of that, I have a Mexican food restaurant where it's our favorite restaurant to go to. It's in the neighborhood, but I just know that the operator does not have a growth mindset. And when he redesigned or updated his new restaurant, he neglected the to-go space. Even after COVID, he just went with the same exact takeout layout and allocation of resources as he had before. And it's very evident anytime we order takeout from them, because he cannot keep up with the business. Even though post-COVID, we see how many more people are ordering takeout, and it's such a large business. Our customers, we see, begin shifting to food service operations that are in the earlier stages. So they're going to try out things that are more in the honeymoon phase. The employees are too. Employees are going to hop to the newest, greatest thing. They tend to make a lot of money when a restaurant is new and up and coming, and it's got that initial business. The lack of growth and reduced revenue can also lead to financial problems, which in turn negatively affect operations. And some people will start to make decisions on things based upon money rather than based upon quality of service, quality of product, and guest experience. All right, so if we are managers of these food service industries, we should not wait for things to change. It's unlikely that they're going to change for the better if we're getting to that decline stage. If we get to the decline stage, we're not moving up, we need to make adjustments so that we can get out of that decline stage. Managers must renew their knowledge of the market and the customer's preferences. And at the same time, keep the unit fresh and motivated. So management must assume a new perspective and consider that we should establish a new brand, maybe rebrand our place, enter new markets, or capitalize on past successes with a fresh perspective. So, in order for us to understand the marketplace, we need to do something called environmental scanning. And this is one of the most useful steps in understanding the market when you're opening or looking at food service. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to look at let's say we're opening a restaurant somewhere for the very first time. We are going to look at the area's economic situation. So again, um, a small town in that's on like I-10 somewhere in the middle of West Texas is going to have a different demographic than it's going to if you hop off I-10 here in Katy or the Heights or something like that. Right. So we're looking at the demographics. We're looking at the turnover of other restaurants. We're looking at how many restaurants have succeeded. We're also going to look at the number of restaurants that have failed because we want that information and we want to be able to identify if there's a common factor as to why those restaurants failed so we don't copy that as well. We're going to look at the size of the market. And then we're also going to look at the resources available to the entity seeking the entry. So basically, what kind of support would I have? So let's say I opened a sushi restaurant in West Texas. Am I going to be able to get fresh fish as often as I need to? Am I going to be able to get the produce that I need? Is everything going to come in frozen? Do I have a Cisco delivery out there? Do I have to use Benny Keith? Do I, again, do I have a company that can help me with my maintenance problems? So I'm looking at all those resources to make sure before I open up there that these are available to me. So in order for me to understand the marketplace, we're going to do something called concept mapping. And this is just a technique that provides the fullest possible understanding of relationships among ideas, concepts, and even business operations. Okay, so we're going to identify the possibilities and exploit the untapped opportunities. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to understand the marketplace. So we'll take a look at all the restaurants that are out there. We are going to look at the different cuisine. We're going to look at the entree price. We're going to look at the size of the restaurant. We're going to look at all of that in the analysis. Okay. And so we're going to kind of see where there are opportunities. We're going to see where the market's saturated. So if we look at this chart here, we can see we've got a couple little outliers, but everything kind of lays on the same type of almost like just a sort of curve. So we can see here in this chart that we have a lot of places in this area that are around the $20 to $30 check per customer. Okay. Around the lower level of quality foods served. Then we're gonna understand the marketplace. We're gonna, in addition to the price per guest, type of cuisine, we are going to look at all of the different characteristics that there are in relation to the quality of food served and the average check per customer. So sometimes this is going to change when you're in a location. So maybe there's an economic downturn and suddenly we have to reevaluate things and see where our opportunities are. And then again, with this, we're going to, on step 3, we're going to explore the competitive marketplace by individual type of cuisine. So if I have taken a look at how much people are spending per guest, if I've taken a look at the quality along with that price and what that cuisine is, I'm going to start to separate the data for different types of cuisine. So is it a Mexican food restaurant? Is it Italian food? Is it a pizza joint? Is it fine dining? Is it Mediterranean food? So we'll break all that out and we'll kind of, again, see where the opportunities are. So something in it, understanding the marketplace that you're probably not going to hear this term, but mimetic isomorphism, this basically means copying. All right. So this is the tendency of firms in the market to become more like each other. Okay. So we see in the photo here is there's different chicken sandwiches. All right. Chick-fil-A has a chicken sandwich. Popeyes has one. Whataburger has one. All these different places have chicken sandwich. chicken sandwiches. And the reason is because they're popular and the guests like them and there's a demand for them. So they're going to start to copy, again, what's popular and try and take some of your clientele. So, one thing we need to think about when we are opening something new or evaluating ourselves, we need to look at value from the customer's perspective. And so we need to evaluate existing or our current enterprise in terms of their value proposition. And that's basically a statement of the tangible results a guest receives from engaging with the services of the enterprise. Okay, so it used to be that value is understood as a simple function of price. Okay, so you got it was basically the product and the price divided by the quality of it, and that's how we determined what the value of something was. Okay, you get this grade A steak for $50. There's some value to it because it's really good quality. You get a burger for $5. It's lower quality, but the value is there at that price point. Okay, but now we know there's so many more things that are involved when we talk about value, incorporating customer expectations, service, and atmosphere. So, value from the customer's perspective, we've now added in things like organizational capabilities to enhance the value to the guest. So, how large is that dining room? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Is the ambiance good? Are the seats comfortable? Are the seats uncomfortable? Do they have a children's menu? Do they accommodate kids? Is there a playground? How's the music in there? Even things like the server's uniform, how nice they look, how it adds to the atmosphere. This if the guest gets good service, if their training program is good, all this is going to add values to the guest. There's different. Then we might see them offering different operational effects, and then again, price point, location, personal service drivers, and the key value drivers affecting customer choice. But they all like those are the key ones, but they only represent about 70% of the purchasing decision. Okay. So, what the price is, where the location is, and just different service things, it's not the full deal breaker in the purchasing decision. So, when we look at the service value chain, we need to not just look at what happens at the guest level. There's so many things that go into that give us more value. Okay. So first off, we need to look at our internal service quality. All right. So if our guests aren't getting the service that they deserve, we need to make sure that our employees are satisfied. We need to make sure that our employees enjoy working there. What is the quality that us as managers are giving to our servers and our staff? Are we retaining our employees? Okay. If you have someone who's worked somewhere a very long time, one, they're much more efficient, but two, they're typically going to offer, they're going to understand what the brand means. They're going to understand the level of service. They're going to be pretty consistent with what they offer the guest. So if we're not retaining our employees, one, we're always training and getting new people and people that are right out of training. Everyone's had a first day at a job and it wasn't your finest hour. Okay. So we want to make sure that we are keeping our employees the full length that we expect them to work there. Also makes them more productive. So again, that's going to give our guests great service. They're satisfied. And then that in turn allows them to come back in. The best way that we can double our sales is if we take the guests that dine with us once a month and we get them to dine with us twice a month. Okay, that is going to double our sales with zero marketing. It's just us doing our job and bringing them in one extra time. And that's going to turn into revenue growth and profitability. Now, customer equity, that is going to be the strength and the value of the relationship between the customer and that organization or brand. Okay, so what that customer, how strongly they feel about the brand, what kind of value it brings to their experience. And there's three drivers in that. That's the value equity, the brand equity, and then the retention equity. So again, returning customers shape how the market will perform. We can double our headcount if our guests increase the amount of times that they dine with us. And then a study's shown that customers with high levels of reported equity in a given chain were 60% more likely to patronize the same brand again. So again, they find that there's a lot of value in that brand. They are going to visit it again. Now, there are certain things within that service value chain that kind of put a cap on the value. Okay, so our physical or systemic limit on capacity. So basically, if we don't have a large enough grill, we can't grill 100 burgers at a time. Maybe we can only grill 50. The amount of staff that we have, if we are understaffed on the floor, we can't fill up the restaurant, and other resources. And the market must be evaluated and determined in terms of its demand function. Okay, so you might have something that is a very, was a great concept, but now there's no longer demand for it. Okay. Now, the most obvious capacity constraint in a restaurant business is the number of seats. Same thing in a hotel. However many hotel rooms you have, that's how many so much revenue we can drive. Now with restaurants, we can expand our doors and we can to go food, things like that, but there is a certain capacity as far as how many meals that you can prepare. So typically the number of seats is what the kitchen was built for. So when we look at food going out the back door, or I'm sorry, the front door, in terms of like to go, DoorDash, things like that, we're not going to be able to do too much more than the seats that we have in the building. Our product offering, our labor, the availability of the real estate, and the parking, those are all going to be limitations on our operation. Restaurants that don't have enough parking, what they're going to find is that people drive and they go to the parking lot to see if they can find a spot. And when they can't find a spot, they assume that it's on a wait. They don't want to wait any longer. They go to the next location. Now, talking about all those different drivers, when we scan the market, when we're looking for new opportunities, this is when it comes into segmentation. Okay, so we've got different types of restaurants that are going to serve a varying need and taste of the increasingly diverse public. Okay, so when we make determinations on what we're going to open, we need to think about what segment of the market we need to be in. Now, the segments of the industry differ in the style of service, the price point, and the value proposition. Now, the first segment we're going to talk about is the family and the casual dining, all right? So in our family and casual dining, this is where we offer table service, but at a relatively low price point given the tableside service. So think like a Chili's, a Cheddar's, the old Bennigan's, things like that, where basically it's serving, main function is going to be food, like cheap food, kind of taking care of the guests. They typically are going to build brand loyalty with customer-friendly programs such as a children's menu. Their menus are going to have many more choices than in other segments. They tend to capture the broadest possible audience. This is very helpful for families or large parties going out because they know that no matter what their guest tastes are, everyone's going to have something to choose from on that menu. Our family and casual dining are positioning themselves for specific dining purposes. They market themselves as community friendly and family friendly. Chili's is our neighborhood grill. And there's a focus on value. So we typically see large portions at reasonable prices with slightly better quality than quick service restaurants or fast casuals. There's also fine dining when we're thinking about sit-down restaurants, okay, where we've got full service. Now, usually they are going to have a unique theme and product offering. So think steakhouses or sushi or really, really specialized entrees. They are typically going to maximize guest overall dining experience. So it's not just about the food. We are bringing in all the ambiance, the higher level of service, the wine list, the host at the front door. Even the bathrooms have a really nice touch to them. The guests are not just paying for the food, but they're paying for the entire dining experience. There's a focus on the graciousness of the service. Again, very high quality service, and servers must anticipate each guest's needs and strive to exceed that guest expectations. So at a family casual dining place, you're probably going to have to ask your server for more iced tea or another soda or ketchup with your burger. But in fine dining, we see them bringing the steak knife out before the steak hits the table in anticipation that the guest is going to need it. They will go ahead and they will refill the water, the iced tea without even asking. The dessert tray is going to come by whether you asked for it or not. They're going to make those offerings to you. So in our full service restaurants, our family and our fine dining, we have a certain amount of support staff that we need for a sit down restaurant. First off, you need the host and the greeter. Those hosts and the greeter are going to not only be the first personal impression that the guests get, but also they're going to control the flow of service in the restaurant. They're going to make sure the tables are distributed properly and evenly amongst the service staff so that everyone makes the maximizes the amount of money that they can make, but it also eases the flow if servers get sat, kind of in order of when they came in or when the guests came in. It helps the bar, it helps the kitchen to not become overwhelmed, because we typically, when you get double, triple sat, you typically tend to treat your station like it's one table because it's easier for you to consolidate. And so all the bar orders go in at once, all the kitchen orders go in at once. So separating those tables can really help the flow of service in the restaurant. We're going to have dishwashers because we've got to wash all of the plateware, the glassware, the silverware, as opposed to a quick service where we are using where the guest is taking away the trash. Not that you're not going to have a dishwasher in these situations, but they're also going to clean all the specialized cooking utensils, equipment, stuff like that. Bussers are needed to maintain the sanitation levels on the floor. They're going to clean off the tables. Whereas, somewhere like a fast casual and a Chipotle, you're going to clear off your own plates yourself. You're going to throw them in the trash before you exit. Those bussers are needed to work on the floor. We've got our servers, again, taking on the orders at the tables and performing as salespeople. A lot of restaurants will have wine stewards. You're typically going to have a floor manager, a service manager, as well as a kitchen manager. You're going to have a sous chef who's in charge of the taste of the food, making the recipes if we don't have a commissary. And then you're also going to see a lot of cuisine-specific staff. So someone who would shuck oysters, sushi rollers, people carving meat, different situations like that. So our sit-down restaurants, our full-service restaurants are going to be much more labor-intensive, and they're going to require just a different level of management than some of our other restaurants. All right, well, that's what we have for this week. Make sure and check Canvas for your assignments, and I will see you in the next lecture.